Welcome to The Micro Collector, a podcast where I talk with the founders and operators behind some of the most exciting micro brands and independent watch companies. I'm your host, Justin Dorfman, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Jordi van Staveren and Alain van den Donk, co-founders of pOrtahl, a Dutch microbrand known for its distinctive design philosophy and attention to detail. In this conversation, we talk about how Jordi and Alain went from marketing professionals to watch founders, the 5 design principles that guide every pOrtahl watch, and the stories behind models like the Peacemaker and Zenmaster. We also discuss the role community played in developing their watches, the lessons they learned from 2 successful Kickstarter campaigns, and how they think about standing out in an increasingly crowded microbrand market. If you enjoy the episode, be sure to subscribe for more conversations with the people behind these incredible watch brands. And with that, please enjoy my conversation with Jordi van Staveren and Alain van den Donk of pOrtahl. All right, Jordi and Alain, welcome to the Micro Collector Podcast. I'm super excited to have you guys on today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
We're very excited to be here.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. There's a couple of things that make me really excited about this episode. One, this is actually the first episode where I have 2 co-founders on. So it's great to be able to hear about, how you guys work together, how you met and all that. But also I've been following your brand for some time, and I really feel that you guys reflect, at least personally, what I love about the microbrand space: attention to quality, the attention to detail, the value that you guys are delivering through your watches. I think that's what makes microbrands special, the storytelling as well behind the watches. And I think you guys sort of check all those boxes. So I wanted to get you guys on and hear the story behind all of this.
This is very cool. Thanks for all the compliments. It's heartwarming. There's definitely all things that we find very important in our watches and in watch design in general. So happy to dive into that.
Yeah. Well, it shows through, and we'll get into the watches specifically, but maybe before we get into the watches themselves, you guys can give us a little bit of a background on yourselves, sort of how you came into the watch world and how you met each other. And what was that sort of sparking moment where you decided, you know what, let's build something of our own?
Awesome. Do you want me to do the story?
Do it.
Okay. I think it was over 10 years ago now. It was my first job. I started working in marketing after finishing my studies. I did an internship at a small agency, and Jordi was already working there. And he became my internship supervisor, which is like a silly story now, 10 years later, but he likes
Yep.
to still say it to remind me of that time. We worked together for a while, and then at some point we wanted to, we both had some entrepreneurial goals, some ambition. And we actually did a couple of different projects together before we arrived at watches. So yeah, that's a little bit of the background story and how we eventually got into watches. That is, it was the beginning of COVID, I think. We were at your place and we were discussing we need some focus. We need one thing that we're very excited about and just, pull through on that. And something that we had been kind of fantasizing about was creating a watch, because we feel like watches are one of the only accessories that men wear aside from their wedding ring, and we thought we could make something cool there, and then what really inspired us there was we were both following, actually Jordi showed me these accounts, but we were both following at some point accounts by watch modders. I don't know if you know what that is. Maybe the audience, if they're all into watches, they might know. But watch modders are people who customize watches. Often they're Seiko watches or Rolex watches. These are very popular to mod, and they completely change them. They change the color, they change the dial, they change the indices, the hands. And we thought they were making some really cool creations that we didn't really see other brands do, like brands do out of the box. And that's what really inspired us to maybe we can do that, That's kind of the origin story.
Do either of you come from, so you mentioned you met at a marketing firm. Do either of you come from a design background, or was that sort of a new area for you guys as you got into this venture?
That was, it's very new. Neither of us are designers by, trade or how we were educated. But we learned along the way. We learned by doing. So I think it's been a long road. I think in the beginning, if you saw how we used to create designs, I think a designer would like be a little bit, I don't know, worried. But I think we got there. We got there through just learning by doing.
Yeah. Hours on hours of self-learning, thinking, how can we do better, and a lot of discussions between us. So
Yeah.
it's all self-learning basically.
I think the important thing is knowing what you like. And then the next thing is to translate that into a final design. And it's a lot of tweaking. It's a lot of small improvements, but it's all about the end result. And we knew what we wanted it to be.
Yeah. What's interesting, and I find this a lot in early stage companies, is sometimes not coming from the background, not coming from the industry, but also not coming from a design background is freeing because you can approach it without the restrictions that somebody that, would be in that industry or be from that profession would have, right? And the thought of, oh, that's not possible, or, that's not the way that things are done. So in a way, I think, it might be an advantage that you guys didn't come from the watch industry and didn't come from a design background. But that being said, I did notice that there were some elements of your approach that are core design principles. For one, I think you guys have a set of design principles, right? And that would be something that, I would expect a designer with a lot of experience would think about that. So it's really cool to see that you guys had that as well. Maybe tell me a little bit about that. When did you decide, okay, let's write down some principles that we want to make sure are embedded in our watches, and maybe tell us a little bit about the principles that you guys have outlined.
Sure. So I guess when you start on a journey of learning how to design a watch and not knowing yet, you obviously start with like the core, the basics. So some of the things that we learned early on is that we needed some guidelines or guardrails that keep us. We knew we wanted to make a collection. So in the end, everything needed to kind of adhere to some of our core principles. And what were these principles? What we thought was important for our end user, like the wearer of our watch, to experience, to feel, to uh, yeah, to really craft the whole experience. And that's why we needed these design principles. And what we came to is, first of all, we wanted to create watches you choose every day. And for us, that means that we wanted to create watches that are different from what people already have in their collection. That's very important. We wanted to make it really, really hard for you every morning to not pick the watches that we design. And then another one was, we wanted watches that start conversations, and we want to do certain things, add elements to that to help you tell a story to someone. If someone asks like, hey, that's a cool watch, can you tell me something about it? We want to have a couple of things ready for you some talking points that you can have for each and every conversation. Then we also know we wanted to make quality watches is very important. So another design principle that we came up with was watches that last lifetimes. It has to last lifetimes. We envisioned that, a father and son moment at some point, you've been wearing the watch for a while and you want to give it to the next generation. That should be possible, and that's something we envisioned as well for our watches. And then it's the whole experience around it that we thought was important as well. So the best possible experience is the fourth design principle. And this is about anything from the unboxing to sizing the watch to the wrist feel when you have it on wrist, when you have it in the hand. What's the weight like? Stuff like that. And we didn't want to, cut any corners there. So that's the fourth design principle. And then the last one was to make every time-telling occasion special. And this was about not just creating something different from what people already have, but also to really position the watch in a way that it really feels special to the end user. We want to create remarkable watches. And that also ties into kind of the origin of our brand name. So that's something we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, why don't we get into that, because that's actually a story that I wasn't able to find online, or I didn't at least come across. So tell me what the name actually means.
So the name pOrtahl comes from the Dutch word pOrtahl is the word for portal that you may know in English, and is derived from the concept of that portal. So we had these discussions about how we want people who wear our watches, how we want them to feel, and we started with like, what's that usually like? You
Yeah.
know, that feeling is usually, how much time do I have left? How long is this meeting? All these little cortisol spikes, all these little stress moments. And we kind of wanted to flip that on its head and make those moments, those time telling moments, moments of calm, of peace, of Zen, which is kind of how we arrived at Zenmaster in the end. But um, every time telling occasion should be something that allows you to escape. And through what? Through a portal. That's kind of how this
Yeah,
took hold.
it's interesting because a couple of things here really resonate with me. One is, I think you guys really pushed yourself to put yourself in the collector's shoes when you were thinking about these design principles. Like when I read them as a collector, they resonated immediately. I was like, oh man, like I can know that this is a good quality watch. I do have two sons, so I was like, I do have aspirations one day to pass my collection on to them. And even before I go, be able to see them wear these watches and experience their life wearing these watches. So a lot of the design principles themselves, immediately I was like, these guys understand collectors. They're viewing watches from that viewpoint. And then the name pOrtahl, I've experienced that myself actually, like what you're talking about, where you know you're in a place wherever it is, and you just take a glance at your watch to look at the time, and that watch, maybe some of the memories of your past just kind of come to your head, or you re-fall in love with the design, right, of the watch. I have those moments all the time where it's funny. I was joking with a friend the other day. We both have this experience where maybe our wives will ask us, what time is it? And we'll look at our watch and we'll forget, that we were
I
meant to
forget the
look at the
question.
time, right? Because we're like, oh man, I love this watch. So I totally like see sort of the meaning behind both the brand name and the design principles. Tell me a little bit about that first watch, the Peacemaker. So we know the design principles now. How did those come to life through this initial product? And I'd love to hear some of the challenges as well, because I know, having this vision of what you want to create and then bringing it to life is not a straight path. So maybe you can
No,
tell us a little
it's
bit about that
definitely
experience as well.
it's definitely not a straight path. So I guess it all goes back to these watch modders,
Yeah.
yeah. So some of the things that we looked at, some of these designs, and they're kind of had these conversations, like what do we both like in those designs? And what we saw time and time again is that a lot of these watches were blacked out or turned black with certain coatings that we later found out were DLC coatings or PVD coatings. And after diving into that, like that became something of a concept in our minds, to create a black watch. And it had to be matte black because we love the matteness of something. It looks so crisp. So that's kind of where we started, like a matte black watch. And that got us going. We started researching. We wanted to do everything right. So I guess we went through like 3 or 4 prototypes, and some of the challenges that I think we both faced is that we said yes to a lot of things, small improvements. Every time you're like, okay, we need to fix that. We need to fix this. What really helped us along the way though, is that we, during like kind of the preliminary phase where we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to make, we had some prototypes, we started already community building. So we had these lead campaigns running. We're both marketeers, so we're building out a lead list, advertising, getting people who were interested in what we were creating onto the list, and then emailing them like, hey, do you want to join our closed community, which was a Facebook community? And in there, we would ask them, questions along the way. And that really helped us improve the watch. Every prototype we posted in there, we got some improvements out of it. There are some very savvy people out there who know a lot more than you, especially when you're just starting out. And this community like really helped us along the way during that time. So we said yes to a lot of things, a lot of small improvements during the way. What else was?
Yeah. So it was definitely not a straight line. It was our first watch, so there were a lot of things we didn't know or we had to
No.
figure out ourselves, of course. Well, first of all, we needed to choose one of the ideas that we had, because we had At
A
hundreds of
bunch.
them.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
biggest challenge is
First of all,
focus.
finding focus for sure. For instance, Zenmaster was already something, one of the ideas that we already had at the start, but it wasn't the one that kind of got our attention. And we have so many more ideas. So I guess that was definitely the first challenge.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can imagine that. I never thought about that part. Usually what I hear from founders is a lot around, um, finding the right manufacturing partners that can, align with your vision and deliver on the quality, of what you're trying to produce. I really love hearing about how you involved that community from the beginning. Again, I think this is a huge advantage for somebody coming from a different field, where if you were perhaps in the watch industry for a while and you worked for one of the bigger players, they tend to operate with secrecy, right? And it's like, behind closed doors, we're going to create this watch, and then it's like nobody talk about it, and then that's the big reveal, right? And I feel like this opportunity to engage your audience, number one, you end up designing a watch that is going to resonate with the community because they were involved in the process. But number two is when you then launch it, you have a active and eager enthusiast community that's ready to buy it. And again, they felt like part of the journey. So what they're wearing on their wrist, they feel like they were part of the creation, right? So I think that's really, really interesting. And I know that you guys had a lot of success, not just with the Peacemaker, but with Zenmaster as well in Kickstarter. Do you think that had a role in it, sort of engaging the community early?
For sure, sure. I think you've already touched some of the points there, some of the benefits of having a community like that. They feel involved, they feel invested already. They helped change some things about the watch that actually improved it. There's definitely some people I can name off the top of my head that were in the community from the start and who have also bought Zenmaster from us. So, yeah, that is definitely a big benefit for us. And it is, I guess, ignorance is bliss in our case. We kind of started without all of this experience, so we needed help from other people. We had all of these skills that were missing, and we either needed to learn this stuff ourselves or to pay or have other incentives for people to help us with that. One other thing that I remember was we had trouble with was content. How to create beautiful photographs. And if you see the campaign now, you're probably like, you didn't have any trouble there, but there's a whole journey up to that process. So we were running these advertisements, and then actually some person that signed up, and his name was Melle Lukien, is like the founder of a big agency here in the Netherlands. He had a big marketing agency, not a marketing agency, it's a media production
Yeah.
agency, I would say. Like he creates like commercials, like high-end commercials for big brands. Jordi kind of recognized his name, and we got to discussing like, maybe he can help us. So we kind of took the bold step to send him an email directly and ask him like, hey, we saw you sign up for our email list. There's actually something that you're really good at that we are not very good at. And is there anything you can do to help us? And he was very interested. So we hopped on a call, and the rest is history, man. He helped us with this entire production. It was amazing, especially just starting out when you don't really have the budget for productions like that. And the way we were treated and the way the whole production came together, how many people helped us actually do that, it was insane. It was like a whole different story, different journey for us all the way up to that campaign. I guess the message in here for other founders is that don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask other people if you don't know. And especially keep in mind that you know nothing. Start off there. Start off there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's like the last thing I would have guessed would have been a challenge, because when I landed on your site, the images are beautiful. The video is very professionally edited, and the watches really shine through, which is not always the case. Sometimes with a early stage watch company or micro brand, the watches, when I get them, I'm actually surprised how great they look because the images didn't look so good, or the video didn't look so good. I'm like, oh, pleasantly surprised. And I think in your case, you've got the quality watch, but also the quality content. So I would have never guessed that was a challenge. But now it makes sense how you got some support from sort of an industry titan there, which is really cool. Yeah. Tell me about the Zenmaster, because I think that's a really interesting watch. So you got this first watch, you had a lot of success with it. At what point were you like, okay, we're ready for our second watch? And Obviously interested in hearing about the details of the watch because I know there was a lot of attention put into the details and sort of the individuality that you're sort of delivering through that watch, but also maybe some of the learnings from that first experience with Peacemaker that you said, we're going to do it a little bit differently, or, or this really worked for Peacemaker. So let's make sure that we put that front and center. Would love to hear that transition from first watch to second watch.
Sure. So I guess what inspired Zenmaster in this case was definitely what we learned from Peacemaker. So one of the feedbacks that we got, which was intentional, is that there weren't a lot of customization options. And we launched both watches on Kickstarter, a crowdfunding platform that many people know if you're into watches. And what backers find important, so people who back these campaigns and pre-order watches find important, is that there's some element of uniqueness or something that they can customize. But what we very purposely did with our first campaign is to not offer any customization options. Like, this is the watch, take it or leave it. But for the second campaign, what we really wanted to do is, one, have something that feels special and unique, and two, to have the option, the ability to kind of switch up the style and change something about the watch, about the look and the feel, and make it yours. There was an obsession actually that you already had that kind of helped us along there. I'm saying obsession, but it's something that he was interested in, and he kind of showed me.
Yeah, so it was generative art, basically. So making art with code, with software. And well, it all came together, basically. My obsession of these, like, mostly Instagram accounts that made all those kind of art pieces with pen plotters and everything. And it all came together when we were designing the Zenmaster. And well, it was a eureka moment that we can make the generative art also unique for each piece, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, we knew we wanted to use the Mayota 9015 movement this time. And we wanted it, since it's a Japanese movement, we really wanted to create like a Japanese theme around it. So we started researching like what kind of patterns can we create. And this is something that a pattern that we really like, and then we started to perfect it, to see how can we adjust the code to make it unique on every generation, how to adjust the code so that it looks nice on the dial. These are all little steps that got us to like the final pattern that we decided on. And then it was off to like, how can we perfect this process of, we didn't want, like, one of the accusations that we get sometimes is that people think that we created like one giant pattern on a plate and then kind of stamped out the dials, but this is not the case. We created a per dial approach. Every dial needs to have attention and care. So every dial is created separately. This was a pretty tough process. I think at first it took us around 4 hours per dial, the initial process that we had come up with. And then we had to get that down. I eventually got it down to a little under an hour, but that was like a big blocker for us at some point. Yeah. Especially getting these watches out the door.
And we couldn't go back. This was
this was it.
One of the biggest challenges for microbrands that want to do something unique and want to or have that attention to detail is communicating the value of that to their audience. I was talking to a founder the other day who, he was a collector himself prior to creating his own watch, and one of his big sort of frustrations were straps, and just like how you have this beautiful watch, but then most of these watches come on like a factory strap that's not high quality. And the first thing he has to do as a collector is change the strap. So he put a lot of effort in finding high quality straps, and it resulted in the price of the watch being higher. And he found it very challenging to like explain to the consumer, that, this is a high quality strap and it's more expensive and so on. And I can imagine that even more so in your case, because generative art is maybe more abstract and unfamiliar to people. And so that makes a lot of sense. But I think it's one of those things, again, if we go back to the concept of pOrtahl, that you would be staring at that and sort of like over and over again, it would be sort of a like amazing moment for you as you look at that watch. So I think it's a touch that really pulls the watch together. And as you said, it connects with the Japanese theme and all that. So it's very, very cool. I was going to ask you about that because I did read a little bit about it and I was like, oh, that is really cool. I wonder who came up with that and sort of what the story was behind it. So as you think now, about your brand, right? I think you've created two models that clearly resonate with the community and stand out. As you think about maybe the next model that you're going to produce, how do you continue to stand out in this world that it seems like every day there's a new set of micro brands that are coming to market? How do you guys think about that? Is it something that you consciously think about, or is it something that, you just stay true to what you stand for and believe that it sort of will lead to a product that stands out?
I think it's the second part of the sentence you just had, because it's kind of how we started out. Our idea already from the start was that we thought that watch design had kind of plateaued. There weren't a lot of new things, especially in the microbrand space, that we thought there was a lot of homage watches. There's a lot of elements that you kind of recognize from bigger brands that come back into these watches, and we thought we can do a better job. And these are some of our design principles as well that kind of tie into that idea. So I think it's just being true to ourselves is the most important thing. We know what we want to make. We want to make watches that are different from what's already out there. So stick to that.
And are there any things that have sort of evolved in how you operate? Obviously, now you guys are experienced watch designers and you've got a brand that is relatively known now in the micro brand space. You've got a community around it. Is there something that yeah, do you, I don't know, are your roles more defined between the two of you, or is it still fully collaborative in all elements? I'm curious how things evolve. We do have a lot of micro brand founders that listen to this podcast or watch this podcast, and they're perhaps at an earlier stage. So maybe a look into the future for them and how things sort of evolve once you have a couple successful products out there in the market.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we are not that different in many respects. We both do the work, if that makes sense. But there are some things that definitely Jordi is better at, and there are some things that I'm better at. So usually you see me on the videos, you see me doing the talking, and Jordi is actually a lot of the brains are behind some of the kind of nerdy design elements, the things the kind of Easter eggs that you find on every watch. He likes to really be in his head and come up with these ideas, and that we kind of work together to hone them and to create the final thing. So yeah, that's kind of the way we divide things. But I don't think it's very important that you're completely different as founders. It is the most important benefit of being together is that we can bounce ideas off of each other and perfect them together. Because I think having only one founder, sometimes the limitations can be that it's very quick. What happens is that maybe you kind of forget that you don't know everything. I think that's something that Jordi and I remind each other of, that if you think you already have the answer, sometimes that's not the answer. So that's what helps us, at least, being together in this.
Yeah, it sounds like a really great combination where you're pulled together by the vision and the work, but at the same time you complement each other because both elements are really truly needed, right? You need somebody who's thinking about these very detailed bits that are going to be in the watch and coming up with these creative ideas, and then somebody who's also able to then communicate that and sort of tell the story behind that. So it sounds like a great partnership. What's next for you guys? We know you guys have two models out there. You had mentioned that you had hundreds of ideas. Is there a new model down the road sometime in the future, or anything else that folks that are listening to this or watching this that are already huge fans can expect from you guys?
Yeah. So there's two things. I think one of them is a little bit closer than the other. The first thing is that we're working on is like a limited edition run of 25 pieces Zenmaster with a different dial. Just you'll find out. But this is a world premiere. You're the first one to hear, and everyone on this podcast. And then the second thing is we're already working on our next watch. We're really in the research and development kind of stage of that, researching a specific type of material and how to improve that, and maybe, just maybe, even create a new material in the process if we are able to get this idea that we have into reality. So definitely follow along, I guess, if you want to stay up to date on that.
Yeah, on that note, where's the best place for folks to go? I know there's a website, and I'll include links in the show notes, but where are the best places for people to go to learn about the models that you already have out there, but also to follow along as these new ideas come to fruition?
Yeah, well, first of all, everything is on our website, pOrtahl.com. That's PORTAHL. And our Instagram as well, which is the same name, pOrtahl, @pOrtahl. Follow us and you'll see what we're working on. We'll put videos out. We'll start. Once we have like a little bit to show and to tell, you'll definitely hear from us.
Awesome. Well, this was really, really fun. As I said at the beginning, learning about your brand, even before speaking to you guys, it was everything that I personally love about the microbrand space, just the passion, the storytelling, the attention to detail, the attention to what collectors care about and including them and engaging with them in the process. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and share your story, because I know a lot of people are going to enjoy hearing it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us. Really enjoyed chatting. Wish we had more time, but I guess all good things come to an end. Thanks for having us again.
Yeah. We'll have to have you guys on again sometime in the future when those new models come out.
For sure.
Let's do that.
Thanks, Justin.